Thank you all for coming. I'm Charlie Sauer. I'm the president of Entrepreneurs for Growth. We are an entrepreneurship membership organization. And with that, on Capitol Hill, we provide briefings like this, which is a focus on an individual topic such as the theft of intellectual property. But we also provide a year-long course in entrepreneurship that we start every year. If you're interested in that after the event, come and give me your card. We'll get you registered. The next class starts in February. And we take Capitol Hill staff from actually designing the business plan all the way through to your multi-million-dollar exit. And the professors that we have for the event have actually participated and advised people in every stage of that. Today, though, we're here to talk about intellectual property and the importance of it to small businesses. Yesterday, as you all know, there was a bill on the floor that actually dealt with intellectual property, but that bill dealt with intellectual property from the point of view of people that it's being asserted against. So the people that own the intellectual property are claiming that that is being stolen from them. Today, we're dealing with it from the point of view of the people, of the small businesses, the individuals that are actually asserting their property rights and asserting their intellectual property to somebody that has stolen it. And I'm proud to say that they're both Entrepreneurs for Growth members, and we have FoodQuest TQ and Demodulation. We have Bruce Becker. He's the president of FoodQuest TQ. He's going to come up, introduce himself, and walk you through the struggle that his company's gone through, his personal struggle with that business. We also have James O'Keefe. He's the CEO of Demodulation, and he's going to walk you through his company and their story. And then we also have John Natio. He is the Chief Science Officer for FoodQuest TQ, and he's also a pro bono consultant for Demodulation. And he brings some expertise to this that I really want to get down and discuss really how this happens and the strength of their IP. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to James O'Keefe.
Hello, my name is Jim O'Keefe. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Demodulation. We are a small company that established a portfolio of 17 patents from around the world to develop what we believe to be a revolutionary technology called Microwire. Microwire, for those who are unfamiliar with it, is smaller than a human hair and can be easily hidden in a variety of products. When our passive microwire is interrogated remotely by a very low energy source, it creates what's called a unique electronic signature that can be identified using our proprietary detection systems to track the item. The technology has many critical homeland security, defense, and national security applications. To help commercialize our technology, we entered into what is called a Cooperative Research and Development Agreement, rather called a CRADA for those who are familiar with it, with the Department of Energy as contractor at the Y-12 nuclear weapons plant. A CRADA, for those not familiar with this, is a very special contract between a small business and the government that is supposed to help a small business like ours commercialize our technology faster. But that's not what happened. The story is rather interesting. Instead, the government, knowing how significant the technology was, played us along under the guise of helping us commercialize our technology. What they were really doing was to intentionally use the CRADA as a way to steal our patents, trade secrets, and then took our patented technology, trade secrets, and ideas without permission and developed the technology for themselves on behalf of the government. Today, the government and its contracted agents are running clandestine, classified programs that use the microwire technology they stole from our small company. To add insult to injury, the federal government and their contracted agents directly interfered with our efforts to commercialize our own technology. So everywhere we went to commercialize our technology, the government was there first and blackballed us. They said that they, quote, had been there and done that, and denied that our technology had any meaningful applications. while in the meantime, the government was continuing to develop our technology for themselves. When we found out what was going on, we went to the Undersecretary of Energy, who had first told us how excited the government was about our microwire technology. Later, he did a complete 100% turnaround, claiming that our microwire technology had no applications. Again, in the meantime, the government was continuing to develop our technology for themselves. When we went to the Department of Energy Inspector General, we were told, and I quote, they had no time for us. Then we went to the Senate Intelligence Staff, who told us we needed to get an attorney. And of course, many of you know, attorneys are very expensive, and at the time we simply did not have the resources to obtain attorneys. At one point, we even went to the Department of Justice. We told them that we were being unfairly competed against by the government and their contractors. They couldn't help us either. So they referred us to the Antitrust Division. We were told by the government lawyer that he was, and this is a quote, too busy to help us because, quote, he had a real job. At one point, we even went to the department, from his office, we went to the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The FBI did not help us either. From here, we went to the Inspector General of the Department of Defense. Again, nothing happened. And our story continues to go on and on. Now, I'll give you one example of how infuriating this was. We had a presentation at one of the agencies that was funding some of the defense facilities. At this meeting, which was about 8 hours of technical presentations in 2 sessions, the culmination of this was the director said that she saw no applications. What she didn't know is I had a sample of the technology and a fiber that she was paying for in development. So I ask yourself, how would you handle that? The bottom line is she was lying to me. Now the results of this need to be explained in both terms of national cost and human terms. Our little company was building and investing in a platform technology. The term platform refers to a base product and manufacturing capability that would result in literally hundreds of new products with the potential for generating billions of dollars and thousands of jobs for our country. Business opportunities like this are exceedingly rare and only come along once in a lifetime. In human terms, our team suffered terribly as a result of the government's actions. Members of the team lived in constant fear of losing their homes. One of our team members eventually lost his house. Some were forced to relocate. Many of the team members and their families were placed under extreme stress, and they became ill. Our credit ratings were destroyed, our retirement savings dwindled, our business reputations were hurt, and we were defamed. At the end of the process, the team looked at each other and we asked ourselves the simple question, why in the hell did we ever become entrepreneurs? Particularly in a system that is designed to eat their own young. So I make the statement to this group, without the entrepreneurs, we will have no innovation that is essential for the necessary job growth needed to sustain this economy. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Bruce Becker, and I'm the president of FoodQuest TQ. Prior to working at FoodQuest TQ, I had successful careers in the U.S. Army, Walmart, the Grocery Manufacturers Association, and SAI Global. I've been in the food industry for around 30 years, and I understand what it takes to be successful within this field. I was working with SAI Global, which is a certification body that performs audits within the food industry, when I first saw the FoodQuest TQ technology. At that time, I approached Dr. Nacio to express my desire to assist him with taking his product to market. I did due diligence to determine the competition, and I identified no commercial players in the same arena as FoodQuest TQ. I never considered adding my own government to my SWOT analysis, but hindsight being 20/20, I should have. FoodQuest TQ launched our tools, Food Mapper, Food Defense and Food Safety Architect, TQ, Poison and Feast in July of 2012. We followed up by adding the Food Defense Architect tool in August. Those who understand technology will understand that we had different alpha products available long before the launch date. And those were the products that we were using to introduce to the food industry. Additionally, prior to my arrival at FoodQuest TQ, our company briefed the FDA all the way back in 2008 on what our tools would be capable of. Our objective was to obtain input from the FDA on how to meet the government oversight objectives within the food industry. All the information we shared with the FDA each and every time was marked proprietary. As we launched our tools, we started hearing rumors that the FDA was going to launch tools similar to ours. We approached the FDA in October of 2012 and we briefed them again on our technology, and we offered FDA employees the use of our tools for $1 a year. We were told during that meeting that our tools were head and shoulders above what the FDA would be creating. We believed if we could offer a very affordable solution, that the government would not enter into our business space where we were already working. With budgetary shortfalls, sequestration, and our ballooning debt, we thought it would be a waste for the government to spend money on our tools that was already being offered by our little company, FoodQuest TQ. It wasn't until December 2012 that we realized the nefarious plan being perpetrated by our own government, as we were disinvited from an industry meeting that was designed to get feedback from the food industry on the new FDA Food Defense Plan Builder prior to its release. The Food Defense Plan Builder is one of the tools provided by the FDA that copies FoodQuest TQ's Food Defense and Food Defense Architect tool. After that disinvite, we realized there was more going on than met the eye. In January, we began our research into what the FDA was offering to the food industry for free. We discovered that the FDA infringed on our patent and stole our intellectual property. The FDA's tools, although not as sophisticated as FoodQuest TQ tools, were based on our patent and trade secrets. The comment we heard from the food industry was, why should we use FoodQuest TQ tools that cost us money when the FDA has tools we can use for free? Oh, and by the way, the FDA is the one that's going to inspect us. Our company approached the FDA to try and settle the matter quietly. The FDA ignored our appeals for assistance. Eventually, FoodQuest TQ went to the Small Business Administration that decided to help us. The SBA pushed our case up to the Office of General Counsel of Health and Human Services. The legal counsel at HHS purposely tried to solely focus our case on infringement of our patent in order to push it into a court of law, knowing full well that it would take years to come to any resolution on our case. The HHS counsel did not want to consider that the FDA might have broken government laws, unfairly competed against a small business, and most importantly, answering the fundamental question in our case, is it right for the federal government to compete with small business or not? Since our initial correspondence with the FDA, we have written many more times to officials in both FDA and HHS asking for a meeting to try and resolve the situation. Every request we have made for a meeting has gone unanswered. There's a personal side to this story as well. of what happens to people when the government steals a small company's patent and provides services for free. Our little company went from a staff of 5 down to 3 unpaid employees. One of our ex-employees has lost his home. As I said, we have not received any type of pay from FoodQuest TQ since October of 2012. In my case, I have been living off my military retirement pay and my VA disability. I am a 70% disabled veteran. The 401k that I had been building after my retirement from the Army is all but gone. My annuity that my wife and I started after inheritance from her grandmother is gone. My wife's 401k is gone. She was staying at home to raise my granddaughter, but now she has to go in and work. As a music teacher, I am collecting unemployment, but that should be running out soon. I was not able to consolidate my daughter's college loan as she had just graduated from VCU. And my credit report would not allow me to co-sign the consolidation loan for her. I had to borrow $5,000 from my 84-year-old mother. She's Italian, so you know what's going to happen to me if I don't pay it back. Although these bad things have happened to our little company, we have not given up hope. We launched a new product called Food Fraudster in October of 2013. The total cost to launch this product was $60. What frightens me as president of FoodQuest TQ is that the FDA, when it briefed one of our congressional representatives, stated that they feel they can continue to take other people's work if it is for the betterment of the entire food industry. If the FDA steals this tool, that will be the final nail in the FoodQuest TQ coffin.
And now you can see why we're here. These stories are powerful, these stories are real, and the bills that we're talking about on Capitol Hill don't do anything to help out these companies. So we have one more speaker to really fill in some of the how we know that the government is taking these. And so, John?
First, Charlie, I want to thank you very much. And I see John Bird and John Patello in the audience too, and others. And these are really important people. These are the people that are actually, picking up the mantle of the types of challenges that Bruce and Jim O'Keefe have told you about. And they're huge. And I know they're huge, and I want to explain a little bit, and I think it's important for you to know that before I retired from the federal government and came into the private sector, I spent 30 years in the government. I actually worked very, very closely with the Department of Energy's nuclear weapons laboratories and all 10 of the national laboratories to do something called technology transfer. And that was designed to actually help small businesses succeed. Our objective was to reduce the time from when we came up with a great idea on the laboratory bench so that we could commercialize that idea more quickly. And we wanted to help small businesses do that, so guess what? We could create jobs and create innovation that would keep us ahead of the rest of the world. And the program used to work great. But I'm here to tell you, after I looked at especially Jim O'Keefe's story here, something is very, very wrong. There's no oversight. There's no enforcement. You heard the number of places this guy went. It's truly a remarkable, egregious story because the government itself is also, and I used to be a cleared, Q cleared and all that sort of stuff when I was in the government. They're hiding behind the veil of national security secrecy to do these types of things that are clearly outside the scope of what these programs were originally intended for. And I did help Senator Domenici on that legislation, the National Competitiveness Technology Transfer Act, when I was up here working for the Senate. It's just really a remarkable story. But if you've heard from both Bruce and Jim, what we are really seeing in the United States, it's a growing cancer. And by the way, this is just 2 examples of what's going on. If you want more examples, talk to this man right here, John Bird, or talk to Charlie. They'll give you lots of examples of other companies that are going through the same thing. So when Jim said, we're killing our own young, we really are. We're also violating the constitutional rights of American citizens to freely practice commerce. Article 1, Clause 8 of the Constitution. My goodness. So it's a very serious issue. This is a constitutional issue that we all, and all of the members of both the House and Senate, should be very, very concerned about. It's sort of an eminent domain where the federal government just takes what they want, okay? Without regard for the Constitution, due process, there was no due process in either one of these stories, and the lives of the entrepreneurs, the very people we depend on to innovate for this nation. What do? They destroy them. Not a good thing. In the private sector, we've got a name for people like that who work in the federal bureaucracy and who purposely go out and try and cherry pick technology and, quite frankly, steal it. These folks are called patent Grinches. You know Dr. Seuss? Remember Dr. Seuss books? Of course, everybody remembers the patent Grinch. We got a picture of him in our handouts over there. Patent Grinch is the attorney, government attorney, who just waits for the opportunity to do what they've done to these people without any safeguards in place to prevent it. Really bad thing. Now, this question that patent Grinches assiduously avoid was the question that Bruce raised. Fundamentally, is it right or wrong for the federal government of the United States to compete with small businesses? Let's see a show of hands. How many people in this room would agree that small businesses should not be directly competed with by the federal government? A lot of people agree with that basic fundamental principle, yet we're losing sight of it. We're losing sight of it, and so much that we don't do, and that we don't think about. Patent Grinches don't care about the things that everybody else does. They don't at all. Terms like due diligence and patent searches, right? And patent infringement, ooh, that's a nasty word. Theft of trade secrets, all that other, what Dr. Seuss would call rigmarole, right? Nope. That's not the stuff of patent Grinches. Instead, the patent Grinches just take what they want. It's more important for them to preserve their own power to acquire the intellectual property of others, rather than worry about the future of entrepreneurship, innovation, and creating the new jobs that America so desperately needs. Fact. Both of the cases that we've heard about this morning are really compelling. These are egregious cases. But again, I want to remind everybody, there are only 2 of literally hundreds and thousands of small businesses out there who are suffering the same consequences. In the case of FoodQuest TQ, we see a systematic process whereby the federal patent Grinches avoid accountability by saying things like, hey, if you don't like it, stop whining, and just sue us in federal court. Of course, as Jim pointed out, the government patent Grinches, right, know full well that small companies, the ones they're picking on, simply cannot afford expensive and lengthy lawsuits. They know this. The patent Grinches also like to take advantage of the fact that many small businesses rely on government contracts. Now, what does that mean? How many people do you think are willing to come and stand before this audience and tell their story? There's no way, if you'll pardon the expression, in hell, that we are ever going to see a federal government contract for FoodQuest TQ. They forced us to go to Europe. How about that? American companies being forced to go to Europe to sell their products. This isn't a good thing. Not a good thing. It certainly doesn't help our defense industrial base. That's what I gave my life for 30 years. This is, it's preposterous to say it in one word. I think as both the cases of FoodQuest TQ and demodulation demonstrate, I think we created a monster. I think we did it when we allowed the federal government to patent and to copyright. You know the stuff they stole from us at FoodQuest? They turned around and they copyrighted it. They took our stuff and they now said the government owns it. In black and white. A truly remarkable change of affairs that would never have been allowed when I worked for the federal government. Because we realized, at least at the time, that if you create that, you create a competitor. And think about, in our case, the Food and Drug Administration and user fees. This is the brilliant idea we have to let the government actually charge industry to do things that the private sector should rightfully be doing. It doesn't take rocket scientists to figure out any of this stuff. Fundamentally important. Now, I want to thank you very much for letting me share these thoughts with you. And my hope is that what we've started here, although we have a few people, plenty of sandwiches, what we've started here actually gained some steam. Because people have to care about this stuff. If you don't care about it, our country's, it's always been about caring about your country. But we've lost sight of something in this particular situation. And we need to change it. And we need your help. So at the end, thank all of you for being here. Because you're the most important people in the room. It's you. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Hey, let me start this off with a question, because there's a couple of pieces that were touched on that I want to go a little bit further in depth on. First, Bruce. Actually, the mic's in front of you, Jim, so why don't we start with you. You talked about how you knew the government was using your technology because you had samples. Can you talk about how you got those samples, how you know it was your technology? Can you go a little bit into that?
Well, I think it's an example of the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing. So we were very active. As you all know, when you're an entrepreneur, you're your own advocate. And you have to push. You have to push as hard as you can. You have to look at turn over every rock. And we were out hustling. We were working hard. We knew that there were applications for sensors for our technology that would help our national security. So we went to some of those facilities that would deploy this. At the same time, we were being asked to talk to some of the sponsoring agencies that were funding this. Well, it just turned out that the individuals provided the samples of the materials that was funded by the agency. And we provided that back to the national labs. But the question of ethics comes into this as well. But it was very clear evidence, and there are many other examples. So it's a difficult situation. And the deniability, there's a plausible deniability these people are hiding behind. So that's one example.
Bruce, I wanted to ask you this too. You said that you offered your technology, and if you can move the mic a little closer to you, you offered your technology to the government. And I find this, to me, this is interesting. Yesterday we were dealing with individuals, and the people asserting their patent rights were not really talked about at all. But now today we're talking about individuals asserting their patent rights, and not just against the company, but against the government, which is really hard. But you were saying you were going to sell your product to the government for $1 a year. So, I mean, you recognize them as a potential bully, and that was the way to get them out of the way?
Yeah, that's correct. We thought that we had been hearing that the FDA was going to put out tools that do the same types of things that our tools did. So we, as entrepreneurs, thought we would meet with the FDA and then offer them our tools for $1 a year, instead of them spending whatever amount of money that they ended up spending to create a similar product to ours. And so that's how we thought we would handle it, by giving them something that they couldn't refuse, but they ended up refusing.
Thank you. I have one more question from me. I know from reading the FoodQuest background that there was There's some proof that the government was involved with taking this. Could you speak a little bit to that, John?
Yeah, what we have, and there's some handouts over there, Charlie, but what we've done is a very exhaustive study of FoodQuest TQ's patent, our trade secrets, and actually a study of plagiarism. What happened in our case is that the FDA took my doctoral research, and they didn't realize when they plagiarized the doctoral research that it was also patented because they didn't do the due diligence. And the result was that they produced all these tools based on my doctoral dissertation that they didn't realize were patented. So that's how the patent infringement gets into it. The trade secrets that were involved in our case actually that they obtained because under the provisions of Title 18, the United States Code, when you talk to a federal government employee and you tell them you're dealing with quote unquote business confidential information, it's a criminal statute. If a federal employee violates that statute, there are significant consequences. Now, I go back to the point that we made earlier, Charlie. It's not just about having laws in place. It's about enforcing the laws. It's about oversight. Oversight, oversight, oversight. We've got all the right things potentially in place if people would deal with the fundamental issue. Is it right for the government to compete with small businesses first? And do we enforce the laws that we currently have on the books to do that? If we have shortcomings, how do we fill them in? It's no different than it's ever been in our country. But the difficult thing here is getting people's attention on it, Charlie. So we really appreciate the wonderful work that you're doing, the wonderful work that John and John are doing over there, and everybody like them.
Well, small businesses are a large horizontal, as the large corporations are vertical. So it's easy to get people up here and it's easy to throw a segment of people on here. But for small businesses to find the resources instead of growing jobs and growing innovation, to actually spend time up here, it's hard. So
maybe John Bruce talk about the constituent outreach to your members of Congress, what you've done, what kind of tasks you've made to them, and how helpful have they been. Maybe some of the congressional staff can learn from your experiences, and if they receive similar requests from their constituents, what should they do? Lessons learned, maybe you can share with everyone.
Yeah, there is a lot of talk, about the patents. Michael Hayes, for example, out of Representative DeFazio's office, working very hard on these issues, looking at it from the perspective that Charlie just mentioned, the so-called patent trolling. But I thought your title was particularly useful for this little session because who's trolling who, I think what we're losing is the fact that there's a perspective here that needs to be told. And we have worked throughout the Congress. We've been here talking mostly to the staffers because we believe the staffers are the people who have the time to really understand these issues. I don't mean no members here, right? What we think is, a lot of the work is done by the staff here. So having an opportunity to sit here and talk with you and to go around from office to office, we've been, my congressman is John Delaney from the 6th Congressional District of Maryland, a very great man. He has a tremendous background in business. I mean, it's like the question I asked before, when you go around to the staff, John, and you ask them, is it right for them to come in? Everybody says, absolutely not. But the truth is, they're just not aware of it. So we've also worked with Bruce's congressman, Rob Whitman, who, by the way, this is really an interesting story. When we met with Rob Whitman, he told us, hey, I used to work in the private sector, and I used to work with the FDA and others, and you know what? He told us our story before we could tell it to him. He knew exactly what was going on. So what you find is this mix of people who are really intimately familiar with what's going on and others that aren't. That's why I said in the end of my little razzmatazz up there, the most important people in the room? They aren't you. It's not John, not Charlie, not John, none of these people. It's you. Because you're in the position to go out and tell people. And what we would like to ask you to do after this meeting is go and talk to your colleagues and tell them, you know, there may be an issue here. We should do more to look at this issue of how to create jobs for people in America by promoting rather than destroying small business. It's that simple. So we've been everywhere. We've got this big mailing list thanks to you. I spoke with the Yellow Pages Caucus, which I would strongly recommend you, if you get a chance to talk with your legislative director or your chief of staff at any time. You know, the Yellow Pages Caucus is a wonderful thing for you to participate in. John and other people bring all this information to you because you're so busy. And what it does is it helps you understand what's happening in a really easy way. So I congratulate you for your work with the Yellow Pages Caucus and the House generally.
Jim and Bruce, I'm a little curious about how each of your companies, what your business model was, how, you know, what line of growth it went on, what did you bootstrap, did you raise venture capital, things like that, because a lot of the discussion on the bill yesterday and the previous weeks related to the real threat of this legislation is it will scare away venture capital. It seems to me that if the people knew the threat of the federal government stealing their IP, likewise, that would be a deterrent to venture capitalists putting forth money to create companies.
There's a lot you've asked there, and number one, we generated our own capital amongst the people that started. Anytime you're an entrepreneur and you try to raise capital outside, you're going to give up equity. True entrepreneurs want to own, want to control what they're doing, not because it's a power struggle, because they want to make sure they're building this company to do it right. Often when you go out to third-party venture capital people, they want to flip a company. So there's a danger. It's a very difficult path as you go out and raise money, and you need the capital. Our business models did call for getting external capital, but that was a very difficult path for us. There's an anecdote there that I'll share with you. In the venture capital community, they successful out of 10 investments one time. It's a 90% failure rate. They will tell you it's a 10% success rate. The reality is that you try to partnership with companies. That's in the secondary phase of what we tried to do. We were having struggles because of the connections with the government contractors and their agents. That's what affected us.
In our case, John put a lot of money up himself, about $6 million that were down. Then we had angel investors for about $2 million. In our first year, we projected that we would be bringing in $13 million for sales of our platform to the food industry, which is over a $1 trillion a year industry. So we did an extensive plan when we decided to do this company, FoodQuest TQ, right now we have about, I think, $4,000 left in our account that are paying the bills right now. That's about it.
Well, again, I want to thank you all for coming. I want to thank you for your time. I know that time is valuable up here. And I look forward to seeing you again in the near future. Thanks again. Bye.
Thank you all for your